Right. You said you wanted to ask something, Hilda?
Yes, please. Um, for 1 week ago, I had a dream, and in that dream, my sister, she lives in Swiss, and she posted an oxygen machine. Uh, you know what oxygen is? Zuurstof, zuurstofmachine.
An oxygen, yeah, machine who makes oxygen for breathing.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Oxygen. Yeah.
But in that dream, I wake up and I thought to myself, for a few years ago, I had the same dream, but then she posted to me. And last week, I dreamed that the machine was coming home by me, and I don't know what that's meaning, what the meaning is of that.
Um,
I don't know.
Hilda, is it a machine for life support? Do you mean by that?
Ja, nee, ik denk dat het was een zuurstofapparaat. Gewoon een zuurstofapparaat. Dus niet voor life support, maar gewoon een zuurstofapparaat.
Oké, klein kennetje
een
en een kapje.
zuurstofcompressieapparaat. Gediend.
Ja.
Een zuurstofcompressieapparaat. Dat werd bij me afgeleverd. En een paar jaar geleden heb ik gedroomd dat Hanna het op de post deed. En nu pas, een paar jaar later, werd het afgeleverd. Misschien kun jij dat nog vertellen in het Engels.
Yeah. She had a dream that her sister, who is living in Switzerland, was mailing by post an oxygen can for can for oxygen. She did it on the mail, but until this week, she had a dream that she received this in the mail at home. What could it be for interpretation? What does that mean?
okay. Right.
A good question.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, dreams are really symbolic, and it's trying to tune into the symbolism of what things are saying, and sometimes God uses those symbols because they have meaning to us. So the fact that it was your sister probably indicates that it's talking about relationship and close relationship, and that it came as a message. So God is sending you, or will send you, a message. You're going to receive a message from Him. And the issue with oxygen obviously is about breathing, about life, what we need for life. So it may have some sort of interpretation that God is wanting you to be able to connect into a deeper level of life, represented by the oxygen, which represents the spirit, and that will come through relationship. And when it comes to your home, houses, homes, you normally talk about our own lives. So the different rooms in our lives, are indicated by usually homes and things like that. So it may just be simply that you're going to receive something that comes to you as revelation that will take you into a deeper relationship with God, and particularly because it was oxygen rather than just air, which is pure, it may indicate that that's going to take you into a more pure sense of intimacy and revelation that comes from God, but it's coming as a message from in a relationship, which is a closer relationship. So just be open for it. Just be open to receive something that will come to you, that's going to encourage you, to draw you deeper. Because oxygen, the spirit, is what we need. We need for life. We need to breathe. And in the spirit realm, we need to receive that in a deeper way. So yeah. That's as much as I can think on that, but yeah. So, you got any other questions? Yeah.
No, it's okay. I like it. Yes.
Okay. Right. You got any other questions you'd like to ask? Something you'd like to do today?
Yes. Now I want to ask you for a pray
Yeah.
because my
Okay. About the
friend.
last time you took me walking through the heart of the garden, um, by talking in the spirit languages, and I practicing. And suddenly this morning I had to go somewhere, and I remembered Ian Clayton and words: everything you do, you see, just step in, step in. So I was driving, and I stepped in, and suddenly I was in a desert. I thought, okay, that's a different place. And I was very dried up, no water, and I could hardly walk. And then suddenly there was an angel who was bringing water. So he gave me some, and I looked around, and I saw in the distance, I saw an oasis. So the water was enough to bring me to the oasis. Okay, so that was very good, and then I came back. But later on, I realized this weekend I read a story about Abraham and Sarah, and they had a child. And later on, Sarah asked Abraham to send off Hagar with Ishmael. So the same situation for me with the desert occurred to her and the boy. So is it because I was reading this story of Abraham that I had this encounter? Is that normal that you read something, or would it be that every encounter is something new you don't have read before? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, encounters using the Word of God. One of the ways to encounter God is to use the Word, and to use the Word as a doorway into an encounter. So you use your imagination and you use your spiritual eyes to engage and think about that encounter. So it opens the doorway into it. So that's one way of specifically encountering God and using the Word to help you through it. And also you can use natural things as well. If you want to go through doorways, you can picture doorways just to activate really the senses so you can engage. But if you've been reading a story in the Word and you go into an encounter, it may have nothing to do with it, but on the other hand, God may well be wanting to show you something through it. And so, you know, in the sense, okay, there was a desert, and an angel came, that is similar to the story. And again, it's like, what is God trying to say to you? You know, are you in a desert place and there's an angel coming to you, so you're going to find the oasis, or is that you're going to find yourself in a desert place and then you're going to get an angelic direction? Or is it just that God is saying to you, you know, you need to be connecting with the angels around you, your guardian angels, so that you more connect with them so they can engage with you? You know, so, you know, there's lots of different ways in which to do. The key in having an encounter is to journal it and then go back to it. And so go and take that encounter, begin to meditate on it, ask God in the meditation, what does this mean? What are you trying to say to me? So what you're looking to engage with there is a flow of thoughts that come. You know, God speaks through spontaneous thoughts, pictures, feelings, impressions. And when we come to him and meditate around that, and we begin to just think about it and fix our thoughts and our attention on it, and then ask God the questions, then he can then begin to answer. But the key is not to try and analyze the answers while you're receiving them. Just allow the flow to continue. If you can write it down, journal it, that's great. If you can just allow it to come and then write it down later, that's okay as well. But the key is not to try and interrupt the flow. Sometimes we try and interrupt the flow because we want to know what it means, and then we start analyzing it, and we are engaging in our left side of our brain, and that's not good for a flow of revelation. You know, so you know, in these sort of visions, see there are different types of encounter that we can have. You know, and the first type of encounter is the visionary encounter, where we see something projected into our mind on the screen there, which we see things normally, and we call it the screen of our imagination, that God projects a picture or a vision onto it, so we can see into that vision. We're looking at it and we can see it. And that's the sort of the first level of engagement that we often get, and often people who are asking for prophetic gifts, or they have any sort of prophetic way, it usually comes in two ways. Either it bubbles up as words that we speak, or it's things that we see. So in the Old Testament there were two different sorts of prophet. There were the seers, and those that the Hebrew word was for nabi, which is bubbling up words. And some you hear, thus saith the Lord, and God says this, and others, they share a vision that they've had. Now, when it comes to the New Testament, those two ways of thinking just come together in terms of prophetic. But we often receive prophetic stuff through visions, through pictures. Pictures are quite a very common way of something. So we get a flash in our mind of a picture. Sometimes then if we think about that picture, we begin to focus it and we get more clarity about the picture, or we see a moving picture like a vision. You know, and again, as we fix our thoughts onto it, it's what is that vision? Now sometimes we get an interpretation of what it is. Sometimes we just have to, in faith, bring that and allow others to receive the interpretation if it strikes them. Sometimes our vision or pictures are for other people, and they will know what it means where we don't need to. We just bring the picture or the prophetic vision. When we're looking at our own encounters with God, we want to be able to see, to perceive, and therefore initially developing those senses to get is great, and we begin to look into those visions. Now, moving on from that stage, the next stage of that is visitation. So you can have a vision of heaven, or a vision of a place that God is trying to show you, but to visit that place is a different dynamic. Often in a vision you may see yourself or see things in a third person as if you were watching. When you engage in visiting a place, it's like you are there and you're in a first person situation and you're just seeing or perceiving that which is around you. And so that's really what we're looking to engage is actually partaking in where we are. And yes, we can step in faith like that, stepping into the realm of heaven. You know, the exercise I did last time is just opening a door for our engagement of our senses to go through those realms and see them and feel them and experience them. Now, ultimately, what we're looking to do is to train our senses to be able to be in both places at once, to go from visitation, where we go and we come back, to habitation, where we live there. And Jesus described that for him, and how he was able to really see what the Father was doing, engage in that realm in the spirit, and then outwork that realm here in the natural realm. He described it in John 3:13, and in the Amplified Version he talked about having come out of heaven but living in heaven as his home in the present continuous tense. And so he was living and dwelling in the realm of heaven spiritually, but also here, and connected, so he could bring one through the other to manifest the kingdom in this realm. And that's what we're sort of aiming for, is to be consciously aware of both realms at the same time, so that we can outwork the kingdom and work through those realms. You know, so when you see a vision, it's like, you know, is that for me? That's the first question to ask. Then it's like, okay, what is it referring to? So, you know, you're seeing a desert. Is that a real place, or is that symbolic of something that's going on in your life, or is about to go on in your life or around your life? And so those are all the sort of things you would ask of God to get the revelation. And we can all get that revelation. It's just a matter of continually meditating and focusing and fixing our thoughts on it, so that the flow of God's thoughts come to us about it. So it's like we can have a conversation with God, and thoughts flow from him to us, so that we can understand and perceive what is it he's trying to communicate to us. You know, and sometimes he is deliberately cryptic, because just like Jesus talked in parables, he wanted to see whether the disciples were hungry or desiring enough to find out what the parables really meant. And so sometimes he does show us things that cause us to want to pursue and desire more, and that's the aim. You know, I'm showing you something, but I want you to pursue this, because there's more to come if you continue to pursue this, and learn to engage in the pursuit, so that you find out the revelation of the things that would come through it. You know, but ultimately we would really want to be able to engage the realms of heaven, and to operate in the realms of heaven, both through in relationship, but also then in responsibility, so we can rule and we can establish heaven on earth through our lives by occupying the spheres in heaven that belong to us in authority. Symbolically, we call those mountains, where there are thrones where we can rule. So there's different dimensions in the realm of heaven that we learn about once we've accessed that realm. And you know, there is a process to follow. In Zechariah 3:6 and 7, it talks about that process. And you know, when we first become Christians, we become servants of God, and we serve him, and we love him because he's saved us, and we begin to serve. And often there comes a point in our life where God is drawing us into a deeper level of relationship, and so we choose to engage at a deeper level, and that often involves lordship, surrendering at a deeper level, surrendering to him as Lord of our lives. And in surrendering as in lordship, we're literally becoming a bond servant. So we literally choose not to go free. And I think Paul described himself as a bond servant of the Lord. But often then he will then begin to take us into stewardship. And so he will entrust us with resources, maybe gifts, ministries, that we are then looking to be faithful. He's looking to see whether we're faithful with what he gives us, and he may give us a little, and as we're faithful with the little, he gives us more. And that might be ministries or gifts and everything, all those sort of areas. And so we learn to be a steward in this realm, and we learn to walk in his ways here, walking in righteousness, seeking first the kingdom and his righteousness and outworking those things. But then there's another stage where we come into stewardship. We go from stewardship into friendship. And Jesus said to his disciples, I no longer call you servants, you're friends. And friends, he begins to reveal something more about his character, his nature, a deeper level of intimacy that brings us into revelation at a deeper level with him. And that whole dimension of a deeper level of relationship means he begins to talk to us. That's when we can engage in intimacy with him, and we begin to have a relationship which is much more of a two-way conversation relationship rather than, well, we read about him in the Bible, we know about him from other people, but actually it's personal, revelatory experiences of him that draw us to that place where we engage in the garden in our own heart, where we engage in Psalm 23, where he is our shepherd, and we sit down with him in green pastures and lie down and fellowship with him. It's those type of deepening relationship that develops us then into lordship, and he began then to trust us with engaging in the realms of heaven in authority there. And so lordship is where we rule on our mountain in the realm of heaven, where we begin to have access to different courts and the angels and the angelic realm in heaven, and we can get a scroll and a mandate from God to do specific things for him. We have our general scroll of our destiny, of what our life is. We can engage in heaven around the ark of his presence and look into his person, his will, his presence, and then begin to look out of that from there, because we're in him. And being in him, we can then speak out through that. And that begins to enable us to frame our world around us. Because what we see in the will of God for our lives on a daily basis, as we surrender ourselves as a living sacrifice, in Romans 12, it talks about surrendering as a living sacrifice. And as we do that, we have revelation of his will for us. What does he want us to do? How we worship and serve him, which are the same words in Greek. And so we then can get mandates from him. On a daily basis, we can go and look into his will for that day. We can get our hearts touched by the Spirit, and therefore he begins to reveal those things which are in our destiny, and we're drawn to those things. Our desires begin to change, and they begin to draw us into greater things with God. We're drawn towards ministry and serving him, but in a way of the kingdom manifesting as we see it in heaven, manifested on earth. So we need to engage in that realm. I know I was listening to Ian Clayton the other day, and he spoke of the old order of the prophetic way of seeing things coming to an end. And it came to an end, he said, in 2012, in December 2012. And then a new order, the order of Melchizedek, being released. And that order, it means that we go into the realm of heaven to see and to experience, rather than looking to have something of a vision that's coming out of heaven and we receive it here. And so many people, I sense, who are not engaging in heaven and stepping into the realm of heaven to get the revelation there, are not seeing into the future any longer, because that realm is closed, that order is closed, and God is inviting us to come into new dimensions in the realm of heaven, rather than expecting a vision to come to us here. Now, that doesn't mean we can't prophesy or we can't get words of knowledge and words of wisdom around our particular circumstances here, because we can engage in the realm of the Spirit and do that. But when it comes to looking to what's to come, you had John in Revelation 1-3 had a vision that he looked into that brought him revelation. Then in John 4:1, he was invited to come up through an open door into the realm of heaven, and therefore it says that he would be shown those things which were to come. So we can see those things because we go into the realm where those things are made visible and made to perceive, are available to us. Now I think that means that a lot of people are beginning to struggle to see what they were previously seeing, and I've picked up a little bit that they're almost like rehashing what they've already seen. They're bringing the same thing because they can't see any further, because they're not engaging in the realm of heaven, and God is calling people to engage there because it is of a different dimension and a different order. And I think because the old things are beginning to wind up, because God never just leaves something in an instant. Often he comes suddenly, but he never leaves suddenly. And so there's a sense where the glory and the presence and the grace of God leaves something, and really that's leaving is so that people will pursue him and go into a new dimension and go deeper and further with him, rather than everything just being the same over and over and over again. God is taking us into new things. There's no end to the increase of his government. Therefore, he's wanting us to come into new things, and that's why we've got to be willing to embrace the new and let go of the old, so that we can engage in a whole different dimension of the kingdom and to engage in heaven and to get mandates from heaven for everything we do. Because then we can get angels assigned to those mandates. We can declare and speak out from heaven according to those mandates. Mandates are just authorizations. They're authority to act. And we get that authority in heaven, then we can outwork it here on earth because we've established it there first. And that's different. You know, a number of people have obviously been doing that for a while, but most people don't do that. And God is calling people into that realm of responsibility to be operating in lordship. You know, and we operate in lordship under his kingship. He's the king, and he makes the laws, if you like, the principles, and then we work with those principles and outwork them. But as we're faithful with that, he also can take us to kingship, in which he could take us into another level of authority in the realm of the kingdom of heaven, and we can therefore, we begin to operate in those areas where we begin as the son, operating in kingship, can release things which are coming out of the desires of our heart according to our destiny, to be creative in what we do. And that's a different level, really. So it's a process of growth where we, according to Zechariah 3, where we walk in his ways here faithfully, then he begins to enable us to work out the principles of the kingdom from the realm of the kingdom of God, and then we begin to get charge of the house and be able to have charge of his courts, and then we can have access to stand in his presence. And so that's a process of a maturity and growth in which, if we continue to pursue, then he will take us through the process and walk with us through it and encourage us and guide us through it. But we've got to be willing to embrace the old and embrace the new, let go of the old, and seek God for new ways. You know. So, there we go. Is there anything else you'd like to ask? Yep. No.
And I should go back to Revelation instead of the story of Abraham. So I will be turning up in heaven then.
Yeah, that's fair enough. You know, that's what a lot of people do. You know, if you want to engage the realm of heaven, then read Revelation, or read passages in Ezekiel, or read the passages where people were engaged in the courts, And that's a good starting point, just to begin to focus around the throne and engage there. So yeah, it's good to do that. But once we've established a pathway, and this is the key, you really need to establish a pathway that becomes your place of access. So when you get a scripture like Revelation 4:1, and you can also use Genesis 28, with Jacob having an open heaven over him and a ladder going up into heaven and angels coming up and down. You can use that. You can also use Jesus in John saying that he has an open heaven over him. You could use Paul as an example, who went up into heaven. So you just use something. Use a scripture that gives you the mandate and the authority, and then you can then engage in meditating around that, or just use the scripture to step in by faith, and activate the eyes of your heart to begin to engage the picture, and then just see where God takes you. And that's, all I do really is open a door for people to go. If people want to continually going, then they need to go back. So every encounter that you have, anchor it in that you revisit it and meditate around it to fix it within your experience and testimony, and then go back, revisit it, and step through and use that as the entrance to your next revelation. And you can go back to where you started as a starting point, and just ask Jesus to take you by the hand and lead you. That's the key. Is we want God to lead us, we want Jesus to lead us. So if there's somewhere you want to go, or you feel, hey, where would Jesus want to take me, then just ask him. Take him by the hand. Like in Genesis 28 with Jacob, he saw the Lord standing in the doorway into heaven, waiting for him. And he's there waiting for us to step through, so we can then engage. Now that's all the pathway of responsibility. If we open our first love gate within our spirit, and our spirit has access where the presence of God dwells, where the kingdom dwells within us, and we open that first love gate, that invites God into us to be Lord of greater dimensions of our spirit, soul, body, but we also get to go through the doorway back into the realm of heaven, where we can go back into the garden, which is what I did last time in the exercise we did last time. And so if you open the first love gate, Revelation 3:20, he then leaves that doorway open for you to come through. And so you can step back through that and engage with him. But then the more you do it, the easier it becomes to step through the memory that you already have. That memory and testimony that you already have becomes a doorway that you can engage again and again and again. You just have to practice. Hebrews 5:14, just practice to train your senses to engage. And it takes practice. I didn't get pathways established until I went over and over and over it every day. I went over it every day of my life for two and a half years, and in going over it and over it and over it, I found the pathways became easier and easier and easier, and it took less and less time to do it. But I had to be disciplined enough to go over it, presenting myself as a living sacrifice, going through the different veils, engaging, through the way of the cross, to engage then, stepping into through the veil of the way, the truth, to engage around the altar of incense and present myself before God, then engaging into the Ark of the Covenant around in the tabernacle to engage with the presence of God and the four faces of God. So all those were things I practiced again and again. And I also practiced opening up my spirit gates, engaging with the spirit within, being sensitive to the spirit, engaging the realm of the spirit around me. I practiced it over and over again. Now I can step in at will by thought, because I have those things established in my life as pathways. But I can open the doors, but people have to create their own pathway. I think everyone would like it to be really quick and easy, and it is quicker. You know, it was quicker to me than it took for Ian Clayton. It took him years. It took me months. You know, but you have to do it for yourself. You know, and engage it for yourselves, really. So, yeah. Okay.
It's like school.
Yeah.
Start in the first class, because you can go to the top class if you want. If you don't know how to write, if you don't know how to do mathematics, you will not understand. So it's the same principle.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah, it is absolutely the same principle. You know, and you build on it. You know, one layer builds on another.
Yeah.
You know, the same thing when you wrote the first few letters when you were learning to write. You know, they didn't look too good, and they were a bit odd. And you wrote simple letters like dog or cat or me or and things like that. And then, but later on, when you establish that into later to secondary school and into higher education, you were able to write, you know, everything you needed to write. You know, and so it's the same thing. We just have to practice, and those things will develop. And you know, it's not easy to start with. But if we didn't persevere when we were a child, we wouldn't be able to do what we do now. And it's the same thing. We come to God as a child, and He wants to bring us into maturity, you know, which is exactly what Hebrews 5:13-14 says. You know, it's the mature who have trained their senses to discern. And that discern means to see and to feel and to perceive and to engage through practice, through engagement over and over and over again. Yeah, that's how it works. You know, but you know, I can open doors, and I think it would be good maybe just to do an exercise. Last time we looked through the exercise of stepping through the first love gate into the realm of the garden. Perhaps today we can just look to step in through the realm of the open heaven that's open from Revelation 4:1, and we can practice stepping in, and Jesus can meet us there, which should be good. So I'd encourage you, if you want to do that, just to close your eyes and just begin to relax and just begin to think about Jesus. Just begin to think about heaven open over us and a ladder or steps that lead up into the realm of heaven. And that realm is open. And we can access that realm. So we just go up into the realm of heaven. We step in. Now, as you step into the realm of heaven, just begin to sense the atmosphere. Begin to breathe in the atmosphere of heaven. Just breathe deeply of that atmosphere. It's a different atmosphere. It's alive. It's living. Everything's alive. Everything is living and active. Now there's a door that's there for you to step through. And Jesus is standing in the door, and He takes you by the hand, and He is your guide on this journey. Just sense His presence with you. Just sense His love and His pleasure that you would step into His realm, which is now your realm, as He's given you access to come. Now He's going to just take us through the dimensions that are there, and as He takes you through, just begin to sense moving through different veils that are in the realm of the kingdom, as he's going to take you through the veil of the way. He's going to take you along the way, and you can go through that veil, and he's going to take you through the veil of the truth. And in your own heart, just present yourself to him as a living sacrifice. Just present yourself, just surrender to him at a deeper level, as he's there just to guide you. Now he's going to take you through the veil of the life into the Holy of Holies. Now you step into the Holy of Holies, around the ark of his presence, the cherubim. The blood of his blood is on the mercy seat, and in that place you're going to engage with the four faces of God and with his name. His name is represented by the four letters Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. Just begin to look into his presence as he manifests there as the lion, the ox, the eagle, and the man. The lion, the ox, the eagle, and the man. His presence you can step into. Now open your heart and just allow him to write on the tablets of your heart, to begin to adjust the desires of your heart as you draw near to him. Now he can release to you his will for you as a mandate that you receive into your heart. You come into agreement and alignment. You may feel a drawing. You may sense him speaking to you words of affirmation and authority. You may feel a scroll given to you. But take it into your heart, because that authorizes you. So just feel his presence. You may feel drawn to the lion or the ox or the eagle or the man. You begin to look out from the perspective of God. What you receive, you begin to resonate with, you come into harmony and agreement with. Your whole being begins to receive his will for you and the mandate that comes with his will. You may sense colors and fragrances as life that you've received begins to burst out of you and around you as you're standing in the very presence of God. Now Jesus just again begins to take you by the hand, and as he's placed within you his desires and the mandate of authorization to rule. He takes you to your mountain at the top of the realm of the kingdom of God, just as Satan took him to stand at the top of the mountain and see all the kingdoms that were available to him. He takes you to the top of your mountain to show you the 7 mountains that belong to you, your spheres of kingdom authority. You can begin to look and see the different mountains below. You may sense what their names are. He may reveal to you what those names are if you ask him. The 7 spheres that belong to you. Now Jesus would have you look at him as you're on the top of your mountain, and there's a throne that's your throne to rule. And you can be seated on that throne, Jesus standing before you, your heavenly angel standing behind you. Now Jesus would place a crown of authority on your head, and just sense the color of the jewels. He places the mantle of authority around your shoulders. Just sense the color of the mantle. And he places the scepter in your hand, in your right hand, with which you can decree and declare and administer the kingdom for your 7 mountains. And Jesus invests you with authority to rule, to establish the kingdom through your life, to become a gateway of heaven on earth. Just sense his joy. You have an angel behind you who is there to teach you and tutor you in the protocol of the kingdom. Now, from the mandate that you felt around the ark of his presence, just release that from within. You may want to declare, you may want to call things that be not as if they were. You may want to use the keys of the kingdom. Just sense what your spirit is engaging in, what you feel to say or do. There is the angelic canopy that's over you. Just as around the throne of God, the angelic canopy recognizes those that are seated in authority on their mountains. 10 realms within that canopy of angels, 10 orders of the angelic that you can begin to sense and engage with. Jesus will again just begin to take you by the hand, and he's going to take you and lead you to the court of angels. And you take with you your mandate that you place within your heart, and angels will be assigned to your mandate. Just sense them volunteering. You can release them into the atmosphere of the earth to clear the atmosphere over you. You can release them to go before you to prepare the way. Just allow your spirit to begin to guide and direct you in how you would engage with the realms, the angels, and the angelic beings in the realm of heaven. Now Jesus would again just take you by the hand. Just ask him to take you somewhere in the realms of heaven, just where he wants to show you what he wants to show you today, somewhere through the doorway that's open for you to step through. He takes you by the hand and takes you through that doorway to encounter him. Now Jesus again will just bring you back through the different veils and the dimensions of heaven. As you just step back into this realm, bringing with you what you've received within your heart, sensing that your heart desires will draw you and lead you and direct you as you go forward. Okay. Whew. Okay. Did you engage with any of that?
Fire!
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So, you know, those encounters, they just become a doorway that you just need to go back and make them yours. You know, every day I go before the ark of the presence of God and seek for revelation for today. You know, I seek a mandate for today. And when I receive that mandate, then I can go to the different courts, I can go to my mountain, I can begin to administer that. You know, and it's something now I've just learnt to do. You know, I wouldn't do it without having a mandate from heaven now for what I do, because it just authorizes me with authority. And I just encourage you, you know, go back to your mountain, go back to the mountains that you see, observe them, see if there's anything on the thrones that are on those mountains. You may see things that you need to deal with. There can be dragons, giants, ogres, things like that, which are maybe blocking or hindering you. They cannot be on your top mountain that's reserved for you, but those other mountains, often the enemy seeks to block and obstruct. So just when you go back there, just see what's there, and that will give you some insight into what you need to do to begin ruling from there. Okay? All right. Is there anything you'd like to share on any of those things?
Yeah, we keep on practicing.
Yeah, keep practicing.
We keep practicing, and yeah, I was somewhere, but yeah, for me it's go back tonight and see for the second time what it was, and look again. Because first impressions are not always the impressions you need to see. So I go back, but I also watched your video on your home blog, My Journey in the Spirit.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot. So you have you have someone to show you, yeah, do this, do that, and then you find walking your way. So yeah, keep on practicing, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Hilda? Did you experience anything there?
Yes. I experienced fire. And when
Okay, I can't hear you at the minute.
You can hear me?
No, I'm not hearing you.
No. You can see
Sorry.
me? Okay.
I'm not getting anything through on that, I'm afraid.
Okay.
I know her, so I will talk to her later.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Well, I need to go now, so I'll